Hey everyone, thanks for joining the Swirl Suite. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Thatcher Baker-Briggs. Thatcher is a 30-year-old sommelier who is fast becoming a modern-day trailblazer for minorities and millennials in the wine industry. Thatcher started out his wine journey as a dishwasher in Canada at 13 years old, working his way up to picking bottles for the NBA. Today, Thatcher is well known for parlaying his stints at elite restaurants from Tokyo to San Francisco. He started his own private wine consultancy where he procures the rarest vintages and bottles for an international clientele list of venture capitalists, tech founders, and NBA athletes. Listen to his full story here, and guess what? Don't check out early because Tanisha tells us all about her trip to Italy at the very end of our episode. Cheers! Welcome to the Swirl Suite, everybody, and happy Wine Wednesday. It's really hot in DC, so I'm sure you are drinking lots of beautiful white wines and lots of sparkling wines. We're going to talk about Chenin Blanc a little later with our special guest, but I just want to give you a very warm welcome to the Swirl Suite. Thatcher, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me to the show. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we are excited to have you. Please introduce yourselves to everybody.
So my name is Thatcher Baker-Briggs. I was born in Canada, moved to the US about 10 or about 11 years ago, I guess now. Was lucky to have dual citizenship, so it was kind of easy for me to move over here. And now I have a company called TWC, or Thatcher's Wine Consulting, and what we do is we help make the wine process a little bit easier for wine collectors. And so we help them source wine. We help them set goals for their collection or cellar or drinking. We help to with the logistics, whether they need wine in a specific place or for a specific dinner or for friends or guests. The aim is really to simplify that process and take it can be really time consuming, and we hope that we can make it a little simpler for them.
Tanisha has joined us. Hey, Tanisha, how are you?
Hey, Tanisha.
Hello, how's everyone?
I'm good. So Thatcher just gave us his introduction. So Thatcher, what's your original, how did you get started in wine? Because you got started pretty young. You got your SOM certification at 22, I read.
Yeah.
How did that get started?
Yeah, it's been my whole life. I started cooking when I was 13, but was interested in food years before that, probably 9 or 10. I was kind of inspired by Asian cuisines, different ingredients, different cooking techniques. I don't really know what exactly kind of sparked that inspiration, but it did, and I just couldn't get out of it. And I started cooking, and originally from Canada, so in Ontario, spent time there until I was about 18. And then as soon as I could leave, I searched out what was, I thought, one of the coolest restaurants in the country, which happened to be on the other side of the country. And Canada's huge. So it was a big trip. So I moved to Vancouver, moved back to Ontario to work with another chef that I was excited about. Ended up moving to San Francisco to get involved in the Michelin star world. Started working at Qua, which was a 2-Michelin star restaurant at the time. And that was really sort of that first, introduction to some of the finer wines of the world. I mean, wine is always around when you're in a restaurant, but when you're cooking, you really tend to just focus on cooking and not anything else. And after work, you drink a lot of beer and some whiskey, and that's about it. And so, which is not bad, I wasn't mad about that at the time, but once I got a little taste, I was really inspired. And after that moment for me was about 10 years into working in restaurants, and I realized that I never wanted to be a chef that didn't pay attention to what was happening in the dining room. I wanted to be a well-rounded business owner. I wanted to understand how service worked, how wine worked, how reservations worked. And so I got into wine. I started reading books, and for anybody that knows me, my personality is very sort of obsessive And so I dove in and couldn't get out, and spent 12 hours a day just studying and reading about wine, and spending my entire paycheck on tasting wine. And it was funny because so you can drink in Canada at 18 or 19, depending on which province you're in. And at that age, I really didn't even like to, I didn't like the effects of drinking wine. It just didn't make me feel good. And, but I love the way that it tastes. I love the story. And as I kind of went through it, I started to appreciate it a lot more, and actually could, could drink the wine, but I would just taste it and, and then kind of move on to the next wine. So I just started studying, and as soon as I turned 21, I flew back to San Francisco to take the introduction exam for the Court of Masters Sommeliers. Well, I think it was about 6 months after I turned 21, I flew out to take that exam. And then 6 months later, I took the certified sommelier exam in New York. And then decided to really pursue, the sommelier lifestyle or in the dining room, and kind of gain a better understanding of what that was all about. So I moved back to San Francisco and spent some time at Saison restaurant, which was another 2-Michelin star restaurant that had an absolutely epic wine list of probably 4,000 selections at the time, of just all of the craziest, oldest, rarest Burgundy, Champagne, Rhone, Bordeaux, Italian. It was really an incredible list. And it was a sort of, it was like this high speed path through tasting all these wines. Like I tasted things that I had only dreamed of. My first day, I was drinking a glass of Latoche, and the second day I was drinking Latour and Mouton. It was this really amazing time for the restaurant, and entirely spoiled in terms of what we were tasting and honestly drinking, because being such a small restaurant, we had 7 tables. A lot of guests you build this really amazing connection with, that they're like, hey, I brought in this bottle of wine. Have you ever had this? Like, you need to pour yourself a glass, like drink the wine, don't taste the wine. And that was really how I got into wine. I wanted to make my own path and do something a little bit different than what I had seen a lot of other sommeliers or cooks do. So decided to follow my dreams, and I moved to Tokyo without a job, in just hopes that my resume would get me into the right places, which I was very lucky to find an amazing job. And again, that was an amazing experience to see how another culture drinks wine, how they describe wine. And you learn a lot about yourself, I think, when I was 23, I think, or 24 at the time. So it's really young. Maybe I was 24, 25. I was young. I didn't speak Japanese. I wanted to think that I understood the culture, but nobody understands the culture, even sometimes Japanese people. And when you can't speak a language and you need to learn how to describe wine to somebody, it's an interesting moment in patience and communication. And I learned a lot about myself, a lot about how to interact with guests, communicate with people. It was a really amazing experience. And then decided to move back to San Francisco after a couple of years of honestly drinking probably the best I've ever drank in my entire life was Japan. I said Saison was a small restaurant. We had 7 tables. The restaurant in Tokyo was called Takazawa. We had 10 seats in the entire restaurant. It was pretty amazing. And the wines that we were opening there on a regular basis were truly something special, and it was even more spoiled.
Wow, that's fascinating. Wow. I have so many questions, but I guess I'll just start with this one. What's the major difference between the way that folks drink wine in Tokyo versus the US?
That's interesting. Well, for starters, I think wine in Japan is just really It's been a thing, but kind of not really. There's been a lot of really amazing collectors in Japan for a long time, but it's a very small portion of the population. It's not really part of the culture yet, but it's quickly becoming. And so I think when that is the case, people seem to be almost even more excited about it because it's something that isn't around as much. And so a lot of the Japanese guests that would come into the restaurant would just be very trusting. And in fact, there's hardly even wine lists in Japan. And I think that's a huge difference. When you go to a restaurant, you just say to the chef, like, I want to drink champagne today. And then the chef goes into the wine cellar and comes back 15 minutes later with 4 bottles of champagne, puts them on the table and says, which one do you want? It's a really interesting experience, more so because you have no idea about how much the wines cost. And that often is not the reason, that's often not the first thing that the chef thinks about. He just picks 4 bottles of wine that he thinks is going to work with the food. And so that's always kind of interesting. But there's a lot of trust. They're very, Japanese people are just like, yeah, like if you think it's amazing, let's do it. And I think here in the US, it's obviously not a bad idea. And I would recommend to anybody to ask, a lot of questions if you were to ever go to a restaurant like that here in the US, because it's important. But definitely, I think, it goes both ways. I think a guest trusting the chef and or sommelier is great. But I also think at the same time, a lot of US sommeliers need to also understand exactly what the guest wants. And it can't just be something that like, well, I had this really crazy orange wine from Slovenia, so like I'm going to give it to this person who likes Napa Cabernet because they said I can pick whatever I want. To me, that's kind of a miss. So I think that those are some pretty significant differences between that. But Japan, for anybody that's into wine, if you ever go, there's like just magical wine bars that exist there with things that you just could never find anywhere else.
Tanisha, so same question for you. What is the biggest difference between the way Americans drink wine and the way that French drink wine?
The French definitely drink it on a more casual basis. It is just a thing that's at the table, like how in America, ketchup is at the table, salt and pepper, Coca-Cola. They drink wine like that. And when they talk about wine, they're not necessarily talking about the grapes themselves, but they are talking about the soil and the sunlight and the rainfall. They're talking about all of that. And then you might even get like a little story of the winemaker. They're definitely into smaller brands, smaller houses, and that kind of thing, not big conglomerate type things. So those are just a couple differences.
All right. Very good point. So Thatcher, back to you. What are some of the services that you offer with your consulting business? You mentioned that you help build, I guess, wine collections for people's homes. I do not know how to build a wine collection because I'm a drinker. I pretty much drink everything. I might save a bottle or two for a special occasion, but like, where do I begin? What do you tell people to begin?
Yeah, everyone is a little different in terms of what a wine collection is. And for some people, that a wine collection could be 24 bottles, right? And for others, it could be 24,000 bottles. So there's a huge difference between what everyone needs and wants. And the number one thing in terms of importance when you're going out and starting a collection, whether it's 24 bottles, 100 bottles, 1,000, 24,000, is to make sure that you have a well-rounded collection. And I think it's important to have wines to drink now. And I think that's the hardest part for people that start a collection. And just let's say like a small collection of just a couple hundred bottles, it's really hard to get to those couple hundred bottles unless you have champagne, white wine, red wine in your house, ready to drink at any moment of time. Because if you just go out and you're buying whatever the top of your budget is because you want to age these wines, you're going to go to those wines first and drink them, and then you won't be able to collect anything. So I think for anybody that's out there that's thinking about starting a wine collection, get a case of champagne, a case of white, a case of red, and then start building on top of that. And if your budget's a little bit bigger, then you can up the amount that you can buy for sure. But depending on how much you want to spend, I think that that's really the way to go. And that's how we start it. We also take time, sit down with the clients for dinner or go to their house, whatever it may be, open bottles of wine, taste through it with them, learn their tastes. Maybe we put together curated cases for them on a monthly basis so that they can try some new things. There's a lot of ways to go about creating a collection. Obviously, if you have 0 bottles of wine at home and you want a 10,000 bottle cellar, it's going to be a lot of work. Whereas if you want to have just a really nice wine fridge at home with a great selection of wines, it's not that it's less work. It just means actually that we need to tailor it even a little bit more specifically because, theoretically speaking, 100 bottles of wine could definitely be consumed in far less than a year's time, and so that's really kind of how we approach it. In other services, I mean, a lot of things that we do are event basis as well, where clients want to have a curated dinner. They reach out and they say, hey, I really love this wine. It would be amazing to put together 30 different vintages of these wines. Can you help arrange? And I'll invite friends. Lately, we've been arranging a lot of wine to go to like vacation places, whether they have a yacht and we have someone right now going to Monaco, and he's like, oh, I need 6 cases of wine in France in 2 weeks. And so we kind of have to figure out those logistics. So we help with that process as well.
Very nice.
I missed this part, but how did you go from sommelier in Japan to curating collections, getting clients, that kind of thing that you just described?
So so after Tokyo, I went back to Saison, and I was the director of service and beverage, and I had kind of a unique role where I was tying all of the different departments of the restaurant together. So I worked with the sommelier team, the service team, the bar team, the chefs, and tried to make the way that everyone worked and ultimately provided service for the guest as efficient as possible. In doing so, and having spent so many years at Saison, because I was there for 4 years in total, which is not, I guess, like that long of a time, but it's in a 3-Michelin restaurant, it is sometimes a long time. I got to know a lot of guests on a really intimate level. And I think especially when I came back from Japan, I had a very different mindset. I think initially, when you're in this Michelin starred environment, you have a lot of people tend to have a very acting sort of mentality. And I used to say this to the staff a lot at Saison, and I said, hey guys, we're not pretending to work at a 3-Michelin star restaurant. We are working at a 3-Michelin star restaurant. It's okay to show your personality. And I think what I saw a lot in Japan, working in such a tiny restaurant, was that people come to this restaurant not only for the food, but because they love the people who work in that restaurant. And that really helped me emulate that a lot when I came back to the US. And so guests at the time just naturally were like, well, every time I come to the restaurant, you just pick out wine for me, kind of using that sort of almost Japanese mentality. They're like, so can you just do this at my house and help me fill up my cellar? And so I said, yeah. And I didn't ever think anything of it. I just said, sure, I can help you get some wine for your house. And it ended up being a very large cellar. And I was like, like there's something here. Like this is a really hard process. Like this person wants a couple of thousand bottles. Well, if you want a couple of thousand bottles shipped to your house, that's, 100 cases of wine. That's a lot of wine it's a lot of boxes. Just the putting it away is such a big process, knowing what to pick. And so I said to myself, there's definitely something here. And like a lot of decisions that I've made in my life, whether it be to just get up and move to Vancouver, or get up and move to San Francisco or Tokyo, or go to spend several months in Europe and not really like thinking about it, just being able to sort of react and be adaptive to the situation. I just said, I want to start my own business. I'm going to do it, and decided to go out on my own after that. So that's kind of how I started starting the business. Yeah.
I came in as such a good part. I'm like,
Right. My question for you is like, Tanisha, do y'all have wine collections? Do you collect wine?
I do.
Really?
You collect it for like your life, or you collect it to like drink for the weekend? Because like I've collected some wine today to drink Saturday.
I mean, that's
so like I've collected it, right? That's not what
I thought that was just a purchase.
Oh, okay.
I think I inadvertently started collecting because I joined several wine clubs.
Mm.
And so I do have several bottles that I collected. And to be honest with you, the other day I was looking at them on the racks or what have you, and I was like, I think I need to go through this, because I think with Thatcher, like the wine that he's purchasing probably is aged worthy wine, right? But the wine that I have probably does not have the shelf life that I would love it to have. And so to go through and decide, oh, this, maybe I should share some of this with friends or what have you, because even though I'm storing it properly, I don't think it will be enjoyable in 10 years from now.
Mm. I would love just a sparkling wine collection.
Me too.
I would love that. And I know, like, when people think of like collecting sparkling wine, you automatically go to champagne, but I feel like there are other sparkling wines that are age worthy. Mm-hmm. And I would love that. That would be awesome.
I mean, I could probably drink. In fact, I mostly do, but could pretty much just drink champagne every day for the rest of my life. I'd probably be pretty happy,
Yeah, of course.
It was, this is the level of my sophistication of my TV watch. But I don't know if you remember the Real Housewives of Potomac, and she created a champagne room.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also, me and Alan, we did a little staycation in like the DuPont Circle, Georgetown area this weekend. And we went to this place called Alero. Is it Alero? Am I saying that right? I think it's Alero. I forgot the name, but it begins with an A. And it's in Georgetown, and it's a champagne caviar bar. And it was lovely. It was absolutely stunning. It's small, and it's in a quaint little neighborhood. And I was like, can you imagine living across the street from this place? Wow, I would really be broke because I'd be here every day.
No, it'll probably get old.
Champagne and caviar, though.
I don't think it will ever get old.
Imagine you making friends with a manager and just going over there once a week, like, hey, so give me something different today.
Okay, once a week. Okay.
Could definitely be.
Okay. No, that will work out. I don't like rewatch. I don't like stuff the same.
They would change it up for you.
No, because they probably would say, hey, guess what? Just what we just got in.
Yeah. So Thatcher, where do you get your wine from? Like, how does that process even work when you're getting it imported from other places?
Yeah, I mean, I would say of all, I mean, I would say of all of the things that we do, sourcing the wine is definitely the most challenging and time consuming. I think, people are looking for really, really specific things. It doesn't mean that everything is expensive. In fact, there's bottles of wine that cost, 20, 30, 40, 50, $60 a bottle that people are, begging for on Instagram or emails or trying to purchase as many as they can possibly find. Sourcing is a challenge. We have an import license, which makes things a little bit easier. We really focus on a lot of we pretty much only focus on European wines. So Champagne, German Riesling, Spanish varieties. I love Madeira from Portugal. I love the history and stories of a lot of the European varieties. So that definitely makes the process much easier. We're lucky to have some really great clients that have amassed these really incredible collections over the years that are, 50, 60, 70, pushing 80 years old, that are like, well, I'm 75, so I guess I don't need 15,000 bottles of wine anymore. Can you help me sell some? And so it kind of keeps this really beautiful circle so that, maybe they sell 50 or 60% of their collection, and then they just want to replace it with some really great bottles that they really want to drink. And, they're understanding that, when you're 70, you're getting up there. When you're 80, you're getting up there. So, but that is the number one thing that we spend the most time on, is finding the wines and curating the wines. We never want to be this, no offense to wine.com. They're an incredible business, but I think that it's such a big company that we really want to be a little more boutique. We really want to have things that are curated, where the inventory is ever changing, and you come back and you find new exciting things. And you can think about it just like the caviar champagne scenario. We are really lucky we have an e-commerce platform where anybody can go on. We don't need to kind of curate your selection. People go onto the site, and I see people placing an order for a bottle 2-3 times a day sometimes. And it's just because we're constantly putting new wines, and they keep checking back, and they're having fun. And they're not always, really crazy, big, expensive wines. Sometimes they're just 15, 20, $30. But it's what that shows me is that people get excited about, these offerings that we're spending the time on doing.
You mentioned your process. Can you just kind of walk us through that? Say I'm a client or potential client. I reach out to you and say, I would like to curate a collection of 20 bottles.
Right.
And then what do you do?
Yeah. So we really scale everything. And I think so. At that level where somebody's saying, hey, I just need a case or 2 cases, we have our own inventory of things, and from a variety of ranges of prices. So really, and we get this email right before I jumped on. There was an email that came in that said, hey, I have a budget of $150 a month. Can you just pick wine out for me and send it to me? I trust you to pick whatever you think. So, everything starts kind of in the same, process. We get an email or an inquiry that comes in, whether it's mail or phone call or whatnot, and we follow up, and we figure out what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then from there, if it's a much more substantial collection that you're trying to start, where you're going to be spending a pretty significant amount of money, we'll put together a proposal for you, and we generally will work on an annual retainer basis with you, so we can set these goals. If somebody says, hey, I just need a case or 2 cases of wine, we'll have a call with you, or exchange a couple emails. You can tell us what you really like, and then we'll go through all of our selections, hit your budget, hit your quantity, and then it's as simple as that. And we just send it off to you, ship it to you. And then a lot of times we've had clients reach out, and they're just like, hey, I would just like for you to do 12 bottles every single month, $300, $400, whatever it is, and just ship it to me. This is what I like. Super simple, super easy. We just keep it changing every single month.
And is there a way, like for some of the larger collections that you work with, is there an inventory management system or some kind of way for them to be able to track, understand everything that they have?
Yeah, for sure. I would still say today the best platform for inventory management is Seller Tracker. I've yet to see anything that's any better than that or more robust. The thing that's really beautiful about it is you enter all your wines, you can assign them a location. If you have, two homes or you have two wine fridges and you want to know exactly where things are, you can say one is at home and one is in the garage. And then it also tells you the valuation of it, which is great. So you can keep track of like, oh, I forget how much this bottle costs. It's in there for you. And then I think the reason why Cellar Tracker is the best is it's the number one database in the world for wine tasting notes, and it's all community. So if you're looking for a bottle of wine and you're, in a shop or you're in your house or whatever, and you're like, you type in the line and it, all of, 100, 200, 1,000, 5 people, whatever, whoever has tasted that wine, it gives it to you in chronological order. So you can say, oh, like this 2010, this person 6 months ago said it's drinking really well. Great. So I'm gonna drink that bottle tonight because it's giving me a basis of some information of if it's ready to drink or not. So Cellar Tracker is definitely number one. Some people don't want anything at all. Some people are just like, I like to go into my cellar and just like pull out bottles and see what looks good. I don't recommend that method, but like if that's how you want to go about it, for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's a variety of ways, but Cellar Tracker I think is still number one.
Let's talk about Chenin Blanc for a second. I was told to bring this up with you because Chenin Blanc is very special to you, and it's one of my favorite grapes. It's one of my favorite wines. I don't even have a particular region that I like the most. I just love the grape. I like how different it can be depending on where it's from. So tell us about your love for Chenin Blanc and the trend that you may see coming up.
Yeah, I think Shannon is a really exciting grape. You said it well. I think there isn't really a grape. Maybe Riesling would be the other wine that you see as in many different types in forms and styles. But Chenin it could be a sparkling wine. It could be a still white wine. It could be a little bit sweet, could be not sweet at all. It could be incredibly sweet. It's made in many different countries. I think for me, the standard basis for Chenin Blanc is definitely the Loire Valley in France. They make, again, all different styles of wines. But I think for me, that is really, they work with so many different types of foods. It's an exciting grape, and I see a lot of younger people getting excited about it because a lot of Chenin comes in at a pretty reasonable price point, which is a great way to see a serious wine. I think, I love Burgundy, for example, but an entry level white Burgundy prices out 95% or more of wine drinkers. And Chenin is at a much more reasonable price point. And for, $20 or $30 a bottle, you can be drinking like a truly inspiring bottle of wine. Whereas $20 or $30 in Burgundy, like you might get a half bottle of something not very good. And I always lean toward Chenin.
So what Chenins do you have in your collection?
I love some of the old sweet wines from Huet. That is for me one of the greatest sweet wine producers in the world. I think a lot of people think of like Chateau Yquem, which is an amazing wine for sure. But I think some of these old Huets are really magical. So I have some really old stuff. I just turned 30 in April and opened up. I was born in 91, and 91 wasn't really a particular great vintage. And so I luckily found this, and by far the oldest. It was such a weird wine. It was a sweet, sparkling Chenin Blanc from 1919. It was like one of the craziest wines that I've ever tasted. It was delicious. But it's such a weird wine. A friend of mine sold it to me a couple years ago, and I've just been sitting on it, waiting for a special day. And I figured 30 would be the day.
And I'm sorry, did I hear you right? Did you say 1919?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah, 1919. It was.
Wow.
It was still fine. It wasn't,
It was amazing. It was amazing. So what happened? They sold the winery a few years ago, and the new owners came in and sold off all of the old reserves. And so the 1919 was the oldest wine that existed in the cellar. And I was lucky to get one bottle of it. And not only was it amazing because it was sweet, but it was also sparkling, which is just not a style of wine that you see anymore. And I was with a friend of mine who's this really massive wine collector from the UK. And he was just like, I've never had anything like this before in my life. It was a really cool moment. So, but on the other side, not such the crazy spectrum. I love Liberto. That's really has always been a favorite Chenin. So they're from the Loire Valley. They make a dry style, really clean, really precise. You can drink them young. You can age them for quite some time. They have it's coming from Saumur, so they have just a Saumur Blanc, which is at like a beautiful price point of $25-30. It probably drinks like a $70 bottle of wine. I highly suggest it for anybody that's like looking to get into Chenin. And then they have like single vineyards that get a little more serious in price point. But it's really, really an exciting producer. That's always been one of my favorites for sure.
Wow. So Chenin can age, because a lot of people don't think, when they think about aging wines, that's not when they think about. So that is something that can happen. Yes. Yeah,
for sure. I think more people would be surprised as to what can age than people think. And I think a testament to that is really what's happening right now in the wine scene is everybody's searching out old Napa Cabernet. And by old, I mean stuff from like 50s, 60s, and 70s. Nobody at that time thought that these wines would ever last 50 years. No, it's just, people didn't, except for a few people that have held on to them, and they're really, truly amazing. And so I think a lot of wines, if you keep your wine in a temperature controlled wine fridge, out of the sun, and don't move it around too much, laying down on its cork, you'd be surprised that even a $15 or $20 bottle of Chenin Blanc will last a year or 2 years or 3 years or more sometimes, depending on what the producer is. I think you'll probably find a little bit more age-worthy examples in France than perhaps you might find from, Clark, or, some stuff from South Africa is age-worthy, but sometimes it's made to be in a much more drinkable style. But if you're in France and you're in the Loire Valley, I think all of those wines will last several years and you don't have to worry about it.
Thatcher, do you see, and I apologize if this is a repeat question, do you see more younger people getting into collecting?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a demographic that is exciting to me. Obviously, being super young, I think it's important to understand where that market is going to go, and obviously start to build relationships with some of the younger generation, because again, we have some older clients that have been buying for 40 years, and they're kind of like, well, I don't need to find more wine anymore. In fact, I need to get rid of them. And so working with some of the younger generation is exciting. And I would say I'm seeing like 27, 28, 29, 30, 35-year-olds getting into collecting, sometimes buying really big collections, and some are just buying, a couple bottles here and there. But I have friends that are, not quite 30 or just a little bit over 30. And it all started kind of the same for them. They started getting into wine. They bought 6 bottles of something. They had a little wine fridge. And then they tasted a bottle and they're like, wow. And they started reading about it. And then they go out and they buy another bottle and find another bottle. It's definitely a very different way of collecting, because 50 years ago, wine just wasn't expensive as like it is today. It just wasn't well known. So 50 years ago, you could buy a wine, and you could buy cases of it, and it would be, $50 for the whole case of it. And now that wine might be worth $1,000. Now every wine is like $50 if these guys are collecting. So they're, instead of buying cases, they're buying 1s or 2s or 3s. But it's like a bug. Like you get it and you're like, oh, I have this. Like, I don't want to buy just 1 bottle because I want to drink one now. So I'm going to get 2. And then you drink the 1 bottle, then you're like, oh, wait, I need to get another one because it's so good that I want to hold on to it for a special occasion or something like that. So I'm seeing a lot of young people getting into wine, whether restaurant industry, the tech industry, athletes, whatever it is. Like, a lot of people are, it's becoming a part of our culture, I think, which is exciting.
Mm. We've been saying wine collecting and wine collection and maybe using the term slightly generically. Is there like a determining factor between or like a clear definition of a wine collector? Is a wine collector someone who, okay, I grab a couple bottles this month and then maybe in a couple of months I get another couple bottles? Or is a wine collector someone that contacts you and says, hey, I would like to start with 250 bottles and then let's see where we go from there?
No, I think a wine collector is really anybody that buys wine to drink it at a later date, maybe more than Saturday, I'll say, but that plans to kind of hold on to that wine for a little period of time, and amassing a little bit more as you go. I think really that's the definition of a collector. I don't think it's a determination of how many bottles that you have. I think the same thing can be said, like you're not a wine lover because you spend $1,000 on a bottle of wine. You're just a person that spends that much money on wine, where somebody that spends $10 or $15 can love wine the same amount. I don't think that has to do with anything. So, a wine collector is just somebody that, really the point for me for wine collecting is to be able to be at home alone with family, with friends, and have something that you're happy to drink and not have to go to the store to. And I think that's really the whole point of a collection, is just to gain access, to make it a little bit easier on yourself. I think when you buy wine, when it's released, for example, it's a little bit easier to get, whereas maybe after 6 months or a year after it's been released, a lot of other people are buying it. And if you're buying a wine with a vintage date, it's automatically a limited product, because there will never, 2018 whatever will never be made again. And that's the only example. There'll be a 19, there's a 17, but if you want the 18 for whatever specific reason, you have to go in and get it. And I think that's really that's really the definition of a collector. I don't think it's about anything else than that.
In your future, do you see like a physical location, like a Zacky's, where you have like a cellar, a large cellar, and you age your wine and you have your events at a location?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think after spending so many years cooking and working in restaurants, it's so funny. Like, I think when people ask me like, oh, you must have left being a chef so that you could make more money and like have a better life balance, that was never a determination for me. I just wanted to learn and experience something new. And so like, I would love to have a restaurant or multiple restaurants where, we could also have an influence, obviously, on what's on the wine list, maybe a little bottle shop inside of one of the restaurants. So I think at some point there's definitely a physical location. I'm not ready to leave the restaurant industry or hospitality industry completely. I still feel very involved in that. So
nice. So our next few questions are going to be a little fun. They're going to be like random questions just to get to know you and us a little bit better.
sounds
Okay. So the first one. So Thatcher, each week, every time we record an episode for the past year, we've had this dollar amount. And now we started like $1,000 and we're up to $18,000. So my question is, if you received $18,000, what would you do with it?
If you just gave me $18,000, what would I do with it? I would probably take a portion of it and invest it into the business, but I would probably take a pretty large portion of it, and I would invest it into my own knowledge, and I would probably I'd probably put most of it towards a trip to Europe and travel around wine regions and learn as much as I could and absorb it as much as I can. I don't think there's anything better than like being in that environment.
Tanisha and Leslie, what about y'all? $18,000.
I would travel, and I would do the less popular wine regions because it's not my money, right? So who cares? So like I would go
because she gave it to you, so it's yours.
Right. Well, I would go to like
you ain't work for it. Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, I would go to like Croatia, Germany, and like the less romantic, exciting ones. Just check it out, see what's going on.
Croatia's kind of dope, though.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Mm. And so, what are you doing with your 18K?
18K. I don't know. I already swam in it. I rolled in it.
You got your plastic surgery.
Right. I got my plastic surgery. So I look 23. I took the first class high-end vacation. What's left? I started a foundation. I might just hold on to this.
Okay.
You can give it.
I already bought expensive wines. Yeah.
You could give it to a member of the Swirl Suite. That's a great idea.
You can spread it across all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Since you don't need it, you can't do it.
No, that's not what I want to do. It's not what I want to do at all. I'm gonna hold it, and
Okay. Let's see. With my 18K, I'm going to pack up and live somewhere else for like a month. So maybe Italy. Let's go to Italy for a month. And I could still work. I mean, I'm teleworking.
Yep.
So I would pick up and I would move somewhere and just live there for like 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
just definitely do that in Italy off 18. I
mean,
yeah, you could definitely do 30 days for easily. You could do. I was thinking like 4 or 5 months. You could get away with it in Italy a lot longer than
that. Ways to read Italy if she can. Oh.
I mean, are you thinking about getting like a chalet or something like
she's finna be in a Tuscan villa under the
that overlooks the coast.
That overlooks a vineyard.
Well, you got to realize I don't travel bougie. I'm not Glennis. I may eat and drink bougie, but I don't need to stay in a villa. I can stay in a little apartment or something, or something super small. I can rough it out.
You'd have staff, have to, do your shopping and cleaning for you.
You got 18K. Why not?
That ain't enough.
Why are you cleaning yourself?
That's not enough for 30
That
days.
ain't enough for that.
No, if that's all you're going to do, then yes. I mean, but if you're going to eat as well, then no, forget it.
Okay.
No.
Got you.
But no, get you a little cute apartment and then also.
All right. Next question. Let's just do 2 more. All right. What is your favorite type of chicken and rice? Like the brown gravy, like the old school kind? Okay. The baked, this is also old school. This is what I grew up on. Like the baked with the cream of mushroom or the cream of chicken.
Yeah.
Okay. Or the last one, which I saw on your Facebook page, Thatcher, the Singapore style where it's clean.
Yeah.
It's just like like, but flavorful, but like clean, just chicken and rice?
You know, I had the cream and mushroom and rice growing up quite a bit. I feel like I'll probably get in trouble for this, but like if my mom was a better cook, that might have been my answer. But I got to go with the Singapore style because it's just out of control. She's going to kill me for that.
And you can't tell her you were all here today.
Right.
Sorry, Mom.
She says it's the reason that I wanted to become a chef because her food was so fast.
Wow.
Everybody doesn't have a gift.
She was an inspiration. That's great. Your mother was inspiring.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah,
It worked. She did what needed to be done.
well, you know,
Exactly.
I'll have you know, my uncle is a chef, and that is the exact reason he became a chef. Was my grandmother is not a good cook.
It works.
So,
It really works.
yeah.
And voila.
Tanisha, Leslie, what about you? Chicken and rice. What way?
The cream of mushroom way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wild rice, not plain white rice. Wild rice.
Wow, rice.
A wild rice?
No, thanks.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think I've had it like that.
No.
Hmm.
I like it with the chicken and mushroom, the smothered chicken,
Mhm.
really starchy rice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know I have not had the Singapore style rice, but the chicken and rice, but I am dying to try because I've seen it on, I believe, I don't know if it was Anthony Bourdain or Andrew Zimmern. They had it a lot on their shows, and it looks so good. And they ate it with the chopsticks. Oh my God, it looks so good.
It's out of control. So I've been to Singapore a couple times, and like it's like you go to these, they're like food courts, but they're outside, and like there's just like 15 different places for chicken rice, and like everyone has their favorite one, and the chickens are like sitting there, and they just cut them up and put it rice and like this really cool sort of like almost like chili relish. It's out of control. I could eat it like every day. So good.
Oh my God, man. Wow. Okay. Last question. What was the last wine you drank from a black winemaker?
It's a hard question to answer. I think about it a little bit like when you dine in a restaurant, you know, it's kind of like, is the chef the one that is making your experience? I think a lot of times the chef or the owner is not even in the restaurant, and it's maybe the bartender or the server or whoever it is that really makes your experience. And I think wine is a lot like that. And you know, knowing that I drink a lot of French wine, there's just not a lot of black winemakers in France. Like when I go to Burgundy, there's no technically labeled black winemakers, but what there are a lot of black people helping the process to pick the grapes, to help press the grapes, to help with the logistics, and like for really incredible domains and producers. So I think that for me, I probably drink, and everybody probably drinks a lot more wine than you think that are actually truly made by black people than we think, and their names just might not be on the bottle. So that's kind of how I think about it.
It's an excellent point.
I had last night I had the House of Brown Chardonnay.
Oh, nice. That's a nice Chardonnay.
It is a very nice, yeah. This is not the SATs.
You went through a lot of them over the holiday when you came back from the US.
I think it was over the holiday. But no, I think I've had one since then. I had the one from the South. It's from either Languedoc-Roussillon.
Oh, cool.
So
there's not that many in France.
I know two.
Yeah. It's but you know what? I think that I think the thing about France specifically, or just Europe in general, is it's a lot of generational change. It's a lot of, it just gets passed down from grandfather to, you know, father to son, blah blah blah. And so you know, eventually there will be, and I think things take time, and I hope to see it. And there's definitely when you go to Burgundy and you take the train from Paris to Burgundy, like I was on the train over the summer last year, and there was like only Black people on the train. There was like no French people, like no white French people on the train. And they're all going to Burgundy, and for a variety of different reasons. And I think it's great. I think it's great to see, and I think we'll start to see that a lot more.
Wow. Well, my last wine by a Black winemaker was Andre Mack's Love Drunk, one of my favorite rosés.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
one of my faves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Thatcher, this was a fantastic interview. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm like, I have 17 more questions.
I know, right?
This is great.
Yeah, thank it was awesome. Tell everybody where they can follow you before you go.
Yeah, it's all the same. So the website is www.thatcherswineconsulting.com. The Instagram account, thatcherswineconsulting.com, or just Thatcher's Wine Consulting, sorry, for Instagram. Facebook, the same thing. You can shoot us an email directly on the site. We have a kind of a cool texting feature, so you can just subscribe and you can text with some of the songs, and they can help to answer any wine questions for you. But yeah, by any means, if anyone needs anything, happy to help.
Awesome. Well, you enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You as well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Tanisha, I want to hear about Italy.
Italy was great. All right. Italy was fantastic. I ate everything. I drank everything. Italy still boggles my mind with the amount of grapes they have that I've never heard of in my life. Like still. So the wine competition, I went down there to judge. Girl, they gave us a book and they were like, okay, you can write your notes in here, whatever. So I was writing down grapes and, taking notes because I'm like, oh, I want to remember some of these because these are good. Then I ran out of pages. I'm like, the book had 200 pages in it. I'm like, have I drunk this much wine?
No.
How long was the competition? How long was it? Days?
2 days.
Wow.
2 days.
Wow.
And so we ran through quite a few wines. A lot of Negro Amaro. Negro Amaro and Primitivo. Those are their main grapes. Then there were some grapes that I hadn't heard of before. Bambino Bianco and Bambino Nero. Nero de Troia. I was like, well, I'm now in love with this grape. Alianico, but we've heard of that one before. I had that in a rosé that was so refreshing, this crisp acidity. It almost tasted effervescent. Their rosé, they call them Rosado. They come from that region, from Puglia. They're actually dark. So like as dark as like the rosés out of Tavel in France, they come dark like that, like a light red. So, and they were like, no, we don't want that pale pink style. Like our grapes, we wanted to have more, our grapes have more flavor. And so we want our wines to have more character. And so they're darker. They're just darker. I was like, okay, girl, I believe you. I'm not it's okay.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we saw some of the nonas, the grandmas hand rolling pasta.
Oh, girl. I know their pasta was so good.
And I looked around, I was like, luckily I knew one of the girls on the trip. I was like, girl, give me €5 so I can buy some. I was like, girl, give me some cash. I ain't having cash. Give me €5 so I can buy some pasta. She's like, you want to buy some pasta?
Did you bring any back?
Yes.
Oh, amen.
Some pasta. They have this snack called tarali. It's a biscuit. They literally have this biscuit everywhere. It's in a circle, or like a long loop. And so I bought a few of those.
What does the biscuit taste like? Like a buttermilk biscuit or like a cookie?
No, it tastes like a cracker. It just tastes like a plain kind of cracker. Unless you get flavors. Like they have some that have different flavors. But like that's even what they had at the table for us during the wine tasting, during the competition. They had this biscuity kind of thing for us to taste. So that's
giving you guys a tour of my parents' basement.
I could tell that was your parents' house by the closet door.
Oh, yes.
They're really big in olive oil too. A lot of production there. We would drive through and we would see the olive trees. And we went to an old olive press that used to be run by donkeys. I was like, okay. And then as a part of the last event, we did a wine tasting at this castle, and they had the different wineries and stuff there. And then they also had olive oil producers there. So did a couple olive oil tastings. And they got a couple of samples. I bought some truffle oil, of course.
Yes.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with that, but I got it.
Girl, popcorn, pasta, potatoes,
fries,
every carb you can think of.
Exactly.
Met this lady. I actually interviewed her for Wine School Dropout. And she used to be a sommelier in Italy, but then she wanted to develop this fresh food product. So she makes her own like jams, confitures, and like little apéro spreads. And so that's her new company that she has developed. And she gave me one that's carrot, because I was like, carrot. She's like, no, you have to taste it. So I tasted it. I was like, oh, these are carrots. It is like a sweet, jammy kind of flavor. It's like carrot. Who would think carrot jelly?
Wow.
Girl, it's good.
It kind of makes sense because carrots have a sugar in them.
They do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you just never think of carrot jelly.
No.
Yeah. You're not like, oh, honey, when you're out, can you pick up some carrot jelly for us? I really wish I had some carrot jelly for my toast.
Right. It's the Smucker's carrot, just right at the top. Right. The orange one. Thank you.
But do you still get that vegetal carrot flavor in the jelly though? Because that would be bomb on a sandwich.
I gotta taste it again when I open. I'm trying to remember from before, but it was a lot happening that night.
Yeah.
The charcuterie board.
Yeah. How they have the Thai sandwiches with the little carrots, and that would be good, like the spread on that.
Focaccia is amazing. I mean, it's amazing when I've had it here, but then had some fresh focaccia there. Did not have as much dessert as I needed. I needed more. I was like, is tiramisu just like a Northern Italy thing? Or is that?
Did you at least get some gelato?
I did, but like I went out to get it myself.
Okay.
It was not served. The one place when we were at where we were judging, it was they called it a castle. I was like, well, it's not like the French chateaus I'm familiar with. It'll do. And so they would serve us lunch and dinner, or whatever. And so they're like, oh, this is dessert. And it would be a bowl of cherries. I was like,
oh no. I got cherries at home.
I was like, I know cherries and seeds. And I'm like, if you don't bake these into a cake.
Where is the pie?
Did you have like some cream over it or just cherries?
When I tell you it was a bowl of cherries with ice in it, I was like, well, this is an abomination. I don't know.
Like, did y'all run out of money?
Yeah, if you don't roll these cherries in some pastries, something.
Like, y'all don't have like no flour or nothing and sugar to just like, can y'all these and like a little tart, nothing?
Yeah, something. Wow.
Sis, when I tell y'all they brought out, and this was like 3 meals. I was like, if they bring out them chairs one more time, and sure enough, the stupid.
And then like, well, cherries here are expensive, so I see being excited one time, but not after every meal. I want to crack open a crust, like something flaky.
I get cherries here,
and
I'm not a big cherry eater. Maybe since I'm not used to having them as fresh as they are, but I'm like, okay, maybe with strawberries, I would have got excited at least the first time, but I was like, cherries?
That's funny.
How about I got something better. How about you just take these cherries and go make me a fresh cocktail and squeeze the juice out of these cherries? Then I'll be happy. Wow.
Yes. They could have made me a cocktail. I should have just put some in my purse and made drinks at the hotel. The hotel was nice. It was the room was big. I need to post the videos. They just sit in my phone chilling. It had like a little terrace. And it had a table and chairs out there. And I was like, oh, I want to just sit out here, but I ain't had time. Like they had us around all over the place.
Yeah.
Going to see vineyards and on the bus, off the bus, whatever. Yeah, but it was cool. Got some seafood the first night. So good. I had a scampi pasta. Now that dessert was good that night. It was a ricotta cheesecake.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
A disaster. But I was like, no, I want that. It was amazing. But the scampi pasta was with langoustine, which is the whole entire thing. I mean, every leg, tail, all of it. By the time I got to like the fifth one, I was like, I'm tired. I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't do that in public. I would want to be like sucking the heads and the tails. And you can't just be all cute with that, you know?
And also it was in pasta. So
then you got to work around. Yeah, that's a lot.
Because the pasta sauce was good. So now my fingers are covered in this pasta sauce. I'm licking my finger, then trying to lick the, the shell on the low. And a whole bunch of work. It's not that much meat. It was a lot of meat in the tail, but like the
yeah. Yeah. Well, I've actually never had one, but I've seen it on TV. I can see this being a challenge.
It's not cute. It's like, you know what I hate? It's like when you order shrimp and they leave the heads on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, come on, I don't want to put this work in for dinner.
It's usually for decorative reasons, but
I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah, especially if I'm out.
Whole entire body.
Right, exactly.
Especially if I'm not ready for it. I was like, I don't, but the view from dinner was amazing. So I'm like, I'm complaining. Let me shut up. We looked out at blue water and boats.
Oh, man.
The light reflecting off the water. I was like, is this real life? Like, is this how it works in the work?
Shoot, that's when you're like,
your 18K, you can go to Italy. You can go to Italy and live it up, especially in that part, the South.
Yeah. Leslie, would you say you need a man to share that with?
I would need a man. I'd be like, Central Casting, please send a man here.
Listen, when they get to 20K, that's what I'm going to pay for, all right?
Well, just make sure he's clean. Test results, all of that.
References. Good and bad.
Thanks for joining the Swirl Suite, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Leave us a comment, send us an email. Tell us what you like. Cheers.